You're listening to the Magnetic Boss Podcast, where badass entrepreneurs come together to share authentic conversations. We're ditching the cookie-cutter approach to building a business and valuing collaboration over competition. I'm your host, Calandra Martin, boy mom, coffee-obsessed coach, speaker, and leader. I help women radiate their brilliance in the online space and create magnetic brands. We are here to have fun, do work we love, and enjoy the ride. Now let's dive in. Oh my goodness, it feels so surreal to be recording this first episode of the Magnetic Boss Podcast for you. I honestly don't know where to start because it feels like there's so much that I want to share with you. And I'll be totally honest, recording a podcast feels really out of my element. It feels like I am riding a bike for the very first time, or I'm doing a live video for the very first time in my business. And I want to start off by sharing that in full transparency because if you're listening to this podcast, you're either an entrepreneur or you're aspiring to do something with your purpose, your passion, whatever it is that you aspire to do in the world. And that can be really fucking scary. And this podcast is all about being real and raw and vulnerable and a little bit imperfect, clearly, because I stutter over my words constantly. So I wanted to share with you that I'm a little nervous to put this podcast out because even though it feels uncomfortable, even though it feels scary, even though I have no idea what direction this podcast is going to go in or how it's going to come together or whether or not it's going to be valuable to you, I know at my core that this is something that I have to do for my business. And the reason that I have to do it and want to do it is because I am obsessed with showing up in service. And when I started my business, when I started dabbling in the online space, I didn't really understand the power of that, the potency of that. But as I have gone through each evolution in my business and failed forward a shit ton of times, I have become more and more obsessed with helping women in the online space get seen, get noticed, get recognized, and really cultivate this deeper knowing that you can't actually fuck it up, that you actually can do whatever it is that you set your mind to because you're resilient and you're resourceful and you know that there is more out there for you. And when I look back on my journey in the last 3 years, I see the moments where there was a fork in the road, the moments where I could have chosen to take the easy route and settle for mediocre, settle for what was working okay. And every time I've been faced with that type of decision, just like this one, start a podcast or don't start a podcast, I've chosen the uncomfortable path. I've chosen the path that feels like I am jumping out of a fucking airplane. And along the way, because of that, I have grown my confidence and my belief in myself exponentially. When I look back on the last 3 years, I see how far I've been able to come. And that is what fuels my fire, because I know that that's possible for you too. And that is why this podcast is not an option. It is not something that I can sit on any longer. Because if we all were just to sit on our gifts, if we were all just to take the easy route, change wouldn't be created. We wouldn't be able to feel really lit up, feel that freedom and flexibility and fulfillment, and we wouldn't be able to make an impact. And my mission with this podcast is to impact you in some way, whether it's just a quick hit of inspiration, or it's a tip that changes your entire business, or it's the baby steps, the pebble stones that you have to jump on and leap over in order to get to where you're going. This podcast is going to be filled with passion and grit and so much excitement for where you are going next. So I want to first thank you for being here and invite you shamelessly to leave a rating and review on the podcast once you've listened to a couple of episodes, because your feedback means the world to me. And I want this podcast to be geared towards you. I want this podcast to be the thing that you turn to when you need a little bit of a kick in the ass, when you are feeling like you are trudging through the mud and really don't know which direction to go in next. I want this to be your guiding light. I want it to be your favorite radio station. I always picture myself when I'm listening to my favorite podcast as if I were really like jamming out to Lizzo, because it gives me that same level of inspiration. It gives me that same level of I can do this. And that's what I want for you in this podcast. So thank you for tuning in today. This is just the first welcome episode, and in the next episode, I'm going to share a little bit more about my story with you in hopes to inspire you and really build a connection if you haven't heard my story yet. So thank you for being here. Go follow me on Instagram at calandra.martin, and I will talk to you super soon.